Right, guys, thought I'd do a little bit of an update for is it a Friday? It is a Friday. I've had 3 weeks holiday, so I've been sort of chilling, doing stuff, and avoiding doing too much worky type stuff. Um, April actually turned around and said it's the first time she's seen me actually doing nothing, which is actually true. Because even now, although I'm sat here doing the video, it's because I bought a new hard drive for. I got one of these Synergy boxes or Synology, which has got two fairly large drives. But when they set it up, or the way it comes set up, it's only using one of the drives, and you can't unlock it. So I've got to take everything off to make it so it's one big drive. So I had to buy another hard drive to put all this stuff on it. So I'm now formatting that, which has been formatting since yesterday. It's feeling a bit hot, but it's nearly finished. Yeah, a 4 terabyte drive to move everything onto it. Anyway, so last few weeks it's been good to step back, and I do recommend doing this sometimes. I know I talk about being based, I talk about being in the present and whatever. The reason I do that is because you can reassess everything around you. If you're getting locked into noise and problems and issues, or it's all going great, you may not see it till it's too late. No, that's not what I would say is a negative, because like when things are going really well, people often splurge, overspend, overstretch, etc. Then something goes wrong. So if you're sort of doing really well, save for tomorrow, slip some of the money out, get some money invested, do something practical with it, because that money tree may come to an end quite abruptly. I've seen somebody recently with the redundancy have that exact issue, because they were overstretched on the mortgage, overstretched on cars, everything, and then his wife left him when he lost the job and lost everything with it. See, the problem is I struggle to have a sympathy, because for me it's all practicality. If you overstretch yourself, if you don't start reining yourself in, I can't have sympathy because it's self-inflicted. It's a weird one. For example, if somebody bought a hotel, was trying to get a hotel running, put all their life savings, everything into it, because that's what they want to do, that's the big goal, and work really hard on it, I'd have sympathy because they lost it, because you get electrical. I think electrical fires is one of the biggest problems with hotels. It's one of the big insurance things, especially around Blackpool, I believe. So you can have everything wiped out in an instant. But when people want all the latest designer clothes, 2 Range Rovers and a big house, and the income of somebody who lives in a bedsit, it's hard to have sympathy. But anyway, moving on from that. It's always like save for tomorrow. Some people say 10%. Myself is, how I work it is a little bit different, because what I do is I work out all my bills. I put some in for savings. So for example, I put £300 a month in a investment fund. I've got 450 going into a pension fund. And what's left is what I spend on my groceries and stuff myself, because I separate the house in Spain and all the costs for Spain. The rent in the UK is separated. The car insurance is separated. So it basically, I've got money that I can live on for the month. So I don't need a special saving account or anything for that. What happens is I'll have, say, £1,000 in the month for my general costs. If I don't eat out and skimp on money, I could probably save 700 of that. And with the 700, I'll get to the end of the month and say there's 700 left. I look at it and go, pay 300 extra on the mortgage, put 300 on my Wise card, which is my travel card, but it's not really a travel card. I use it as my direct debit, to be fair, a debit card, because it's more secure because it's not linked to the bank account. So you can only spend what's on it. So the Wise card I use, and I'll load that up. And then if there's anything left there, I start paying things off. You know, an extra 300 on the mortgage, an extra 400 on the car, and clear it out at the end of every month. At the moment, we've had a bit of a run because we've just had the Madrid piece, so we've had extra expenditures. So right now, I'm sitting looking and assessing for the next, well, probably up till Christmas now, where I want to put the bank balance in Spain back to €6,000. My UK account to have a couple of thousand in that consistently, so it's a backup. And the rest of it towards the Christmas, etc. So still paying extra, but want to build the Wise card back up to say £3,000 for the Christmas, because that's the Wise card's the expending money. The 2,000 for UK and the 6,000 for Spain is emergency funds. And once they're all topped back up, then I go back to, at the end of the month, got 300 for this, 200 for that. And the advantage you got is you'll find you pay things off faster, and you're building in resistance to things going wrong. So if you've got 3,000, 2,000 in the UK, and suddenly you get a speeding ticket, you just take it out £200, and then the following month you put it back again. It's not a case of you're running on empty. And yes, what's that? It's easy for you to do because you have more money. Yes, I hear that one all the time. But why do you think I do this? Because exactly where a lot of people were. I realised a long time ago, a lot of my financial issues were related to the people I was around. And when I separated from that, my finances changed very quickly, to going from a negative and loans to positive, and moving away from debt completely. So I get it. I was there. So, but don't sit there and blame me because I've got more money now, because the more money now is actually because I went through all that pain. I went through that change, and I'll be honest with you, even as a kid, I never had debt. It came with the relationships I had, because you got onto the mindset of other people's, and I've gone back to my mindset, which is have the cash. Because it's like yesterday, because the banks rang me, asked me if I want a loan. They rang me 3 times in a week. They send me stuff on credit cards because I've got liquidity. As soon as you've got money, they want to give you money in a weird way. But the reality is, I don't need it. I mean, like, they go, oh, this is, credit card, blah, blah, blah. It's only 4%. And then when you look at it, you go, hang on. Small print, it's 19.8%. That's horrendous. No, and I don't need it. So you start going, keep away from it. I know people go, well, I'll just have it for an emergency if the car breaks down or all this. But, yeah. Save the money instead. If the credit card says it's a £2,000 or €2,000 credit card, you know what? If you can't save €2,000, you shouldn't have the credit card. Simple as that. Because you're gonna lock yourself into a debt cycle where you never pay the interest off, and you just keep on a cycle. They're just like a bloody payday loan. You're caught in a cycle of debt. Don't get me wrong. I get the same temptations as everybody else. So as a good example, there's a garage for sale in La Mata that's walking distance from this house. Literally come out, turn left, and it's just round the back. €12,000. The banks want to give me €12,000 loan. In fact, they want to give me 20,000. And I worked out it'll be €222 a month over 60 months. And I sat there and went, If I have to get a loan, I don't need it. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, but it's for the motorbikes. It's for the, yep. If I can't afford the garage, I can't afford the motorbikes. So I talked myself out of it. And will I get the motorbikes? Of course I will. Will I get the garage? Of course I will. Difference is, I've got to put the money in the bank first. So I'm going to spend the next 10 years paying the debt off. It's much quicker if you're in positive financial position compared to negative. The other thing on this is, if I took €12,000 and stuck it in my ISA, it will generate, let's just call it £800 a year. Doesn't sound a lot, but with the other stuff in the ISA already, the amount of money in the ISA could actually buy the garage on a monthly free of charge. Literally pay it off on the interest. So that's why you get in a positive position. But anyway, moving on about money. I've been looking at what I want to do next as well, because quite simply, I'm tempted to do something different. Because I was sitting there looking at the MBA, and I'm sitting looking at doing a law degree. And I'm sitting there thinking, do I want to do either of these? The MBA, I think I've got enough information to get it out of a book. I think what I need is actually to work on something constructive that will develop a business entity that I can get running from Spain. The concepts. See, this is the problem with MBA. This is the problem with college courses. This is where people that want to become teachers become crap teachers, because they come out of the education system into university, then go to schools and become bad teachers, because their concept of teaching is from the child's fond memories of that teacher that they loved, or whatever it is, or their holidays, or whatever they decide to do. And then they realise when they get to school, and kids are horrible. The MBA is exactly that, because you're going through the motions, but you haven't got the experience of business. I'm looking at the thing of, I need to start doing business stuff again. I'm starting to get into the academic realms too much, and academic realms don't make me money. Academic realms is nice on paper, but I've also already got my degree now. Do I want to go and get a MBA just for having MBA on my CV? I don't know. I really don't know, to be fair. It depends how much work it involves, because I think I'm better looking at something else, but I'm also trying to work out what, because I keep looking around and I want to be doing something different. And I know a lot of people move out to Spain and they're going, oh, I'm going to be a builder. I'm going to, hang on a minute, I'm making coffee. I'm going to be a real estate agent. I'm going to, do different things. And I know, I talked about the village before. But bearing in mind, the village is a non-profit. It'll be costing me money, not making me money. It's more of an entity for a community-based experiment. It's more to do with helping the kids with like autism and other things have a place that's safe for adulthood, so that when their parents or whatever get older, they're not stuck in a bloody care home. That's why I want to try and create this as an experiment to see if I can get it to work. They're not being funny. If it doesn't work, the kids are going to end up in the care home anyway. So if it works, it gives kids a future in an environment where people know there's a lot of people with different needs, etc. But they're in an environment where you've got old people that often can suffer with loneliness, and there's a lot of people around them that want to talk to people. So you end up in an environment where everyone helps each other. And myself, I think the biggest problem I'd have is people knocking me door. because I like peace and quiet. I like creating these things, but just don't like being in the middle of it. I like helping people and whatever, but I'm quite a private person, which may sound quite weird on YouTube, but it is. You probably see I don't really post too much about the family and stuff, because we like having our private spaces. But the point being is, I look and think there is a gap, not a gap in the market, a gap in need for this, because we're suffering with social decline. It'd be nice to get a town that's not, where people are safe and nobody's really bothering them, and doesn't matter if you've got disabilities or not, as long as you know how to cross the road. But at the same time, you make it so that people coming into the town know it's a town where you've got to be an extra bit nice and careful, because the people in the community do need a little bit of help now and again. Also means don't speed. Put like, what do you call it? What would we have it? They used to be called Kinder streets in Germany, I think it was, which is basically put tree trunks and giant rocks in the road, so you have to weave in and out just to slow the traffic down. So you create an environment where people are. But anyway, that's still a way off. I've got to find bloody money for that, and a lot of it I think it's going to cost probably about €3 million in reality. But if it gets going, it could grow quite quickly, because I could see other people wanting to live there, especially if we start getting the retirement village together, where it's a safe environment, it's got its own security, because this security can double as like a community resource. Anyway, I'm starting to build the town, because I mean that's the thing I've actually done this week. What am I playing at the minute? I know one of the guys has mentioned he's seen my son playing online. No, it was me, because if you go in the Discord, you can see what I'm doing. I'm not playing at the minute. Sorry. Workers and Resources, Soviet Republic. so I'm building my own cities and whatever, and dealing with the lumber, the fuel, oil, water, and developing entire cities. But anyway, so even in my spare time, I'm still building stuff. I'm still working in the construction and maintenance industries. But my point being is, part of the village, because this is an important bit that I do. This is why when I talk about stuff, you'll see I'll park it and move on. The reason, that's how my mind works. So I'll have like 200 things in my head, but if I can only take it so far, I park it and move it to the side and move on with something else. But I'll loop back when something else drops in. And that's why sometimes something I mentioned, say 2 years ago, suddenly just jumps forward, because I've seen a gap, because I took it as far as I could and I couldn't move it. So I'll just park it, and then suddenly something happens where there's a gap in the market or whatever, and it happens. I mean, the peso Wi-Fi in the Philippines, I was on about that when I was doing the Bitcoin stuff. What's that? That's probably 9 years ago. And then peso Wi-Fi took off probably in the last 4 or 5 years. So the fact is, the gaps in the market appear. But anyway, moving on. So I'm sort of looking at different things at the minute. It's been good because my head's been empty for a change as well. I know a lot of people say that some people's heads are always empty. Mine's normally full of stuff. I stepped back a little bit on the stuff I'm doing around the BIM stuff, building information management. I've not been as proactive, but I'll be back to that next week. I've also had my invite for the British Standards Institute to be an advisor on their board to relate to facilities management. So that's going through. So I've got a few professional things going on that will keep me busy. But I do think we need to develop some business ideas, and I've been preoccupied with everything else that's been going on that has limited the time I've had available to look at new concepts and ideas. Because the thing with a lot of the ideas is either you've got to see something in a new way or create it from scratch. It's very difficult to follow on the back of something that already exists because it's already been saturated. That's why you see a lot of people talk about e-commerce, e-books, blah, blah, blah. And then they saturate the market. But it doesn't mean the whole industry is saturated. It means that the bits that everybody's looking at is saturated. You've got to find another avenue for it. I mean, that was the whole concept with Amazon, wasn't it? About the books and music. Because they're two entities that really don't have to deliver. Same Spotify, same with probably why Sony bought EMI Records. Because it made the players, and then the next thing was the music, and then obviously they moved on to the Play stores and all that crap. You've got to find that new gap, and that's the bit I'm starting to digress and look for. I am still writing books, but the books, like the channel, are not about making money. It's just about sharing information. But it has been an interesting journey at the minute, because I've got some stuff going on I can't really discuss at the minute, but I expect it'll become public record at some point, and then I'll discuss it. So my main goals at the minute, if you're interested, want the mortgage gone, maybe buying next door, although they're saying they're not want to sell it now. But as I said, because there's some people here at the minute, I said to my wife, I says, yeah, well, it's two older sisters, I think. So I think they'll say it because they're here on holiday. Then they'll go home and realise there's 200,000 euros sat on the beach that they only come to once a year. Because it was, I think it's their mother's, I'm not sure, but she died this year. So the fact is, the house, they may not want it because it's got too many emotional connections. I don't know. But I'm not in a rush. This is the thing. Having the money in my investments is far better than putting it in property. Why would I buy the property? Because I can transfer it to the kids' names. And the other thing is, when OB gets a bit older, or Zoe gets a bit older, they can live next door. You know, I can shove the kids literally next door. Which means they've got the security of mum and dad next door. It also means that I'm getting them out of that cycle of debt about buying a house and all that crap, because they'll have the place next door. So they'll have a bit more security. It doesn't mean they're not going to be paying rent and stuff, don't get me wrong. The whole point is, even with the rent money, will be to restock the finances, because I want it in investments, because the idea being is we get fully sustainable. The more we've got in investments, the more the bills are paid automatically. And the more your bills are paid, like no mortgages, and you've got a substantial ISA that pays your rent, water and electric. Isn't that nice? The only thing you have to worry about is your food bills. So that's a big idea, because that's a lot of money, but it's a doable. It's definitely a doable at the minute. And that's one's also got a garage underneath, which then gets away from the garage I need around the corner. But I may still buy the garage around the corner, because you can rent them for 70 to 150 a month. It may become a viable project where I can rent it out. Yes, there's a charge for the electric, for the underground car park, which is €5 a month. Okay, answered all the questions on that one. As you can see, I'm ping-ponging. And this is what I do. Ideas start moving around, trying to think of new things. So we'll leave that for now. I'm going to do something else. Like I said, I might do my MBA. I'm not sure yet. The way it's going, I may be doing it September, or I may not do it at all. Funny enough, I've got a book that actually teaches you everything you learn on your MBA in quite a short time, because it's a bit like the degree I just did, where all my last assessments were distinction. I printed everything off. April's got it upstairs. It's like that, A4, sheets, like that. I didn't have enough time to read it because I had a problem with the printer and stuff. Well, firstly, I thought, hang on, that's 2 years of knowledge I've got to put in my head. I wrote some of this stuff ages ago. I had no support from the company, so I've had to work within the realms of the course without any support from the business itself. And I'm like, I've got this to read, and I thought I'll have a few beers. So I had a few beers that night. Got up in the morning, hadn't printed it yet. Then printed it all off, put it all over the floor, and then it's like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to absorb that quick. Ran out of time, went straight into the meeting, and just did it on the fly. Because I thought it'd be more academic. You know, where they start going about PESTLE, ESG, star narratives. What else have we got off the top of my head? There's a few different processes out there as well, but I'm not going to go into those. Astoff, I think it's Astoff theory. You may know it. There's different things out there, but I've memorized them. But I struggle with abbreviations because I hate them. Because it confuses people. Because you can have two abbreviations for the same thing and people get confused. But because the problem is I'm starting to think of other things now and it's taking me off on a tangent. Went in, just did it. And even though I couldn't name all of the different theories, I could explain everything and how it's done and how it's related, because all these theories, for me, are just nothing more than bullet point lists. They're not complicated. They're just a header and a bullet point. And if you take it back to that simplicity, because a lot of people like to create things, where I look at it and go, is that it? Is that what you've done? Like herringbone. Is it herringbone? I think it's herringbone. Is it the herringbone method? Where you have all your little fish with a head and all the little idea things off it. I'm like, this is stupid. You know, but obviously you don't say it in the course because it's just stuff you're having to do. But at the same time, got a distinction because I shut my mouth and just went through the motions and could explain all the concepts and depth that relate to money and asset management. So, not widget. But the point being is, I would say 30% of that course was useful. 70% was gunk. A lot of it was DEI. A lot of it was theory and not practiced. There wasn't really anything in there, I would say, actually evidence that any of it worked, because they're all theories. So it's not like you got somebody going, I utilised this for a General Electric company and this led to a saving of 25% through blah, blah, blah. Didn't see any of that. So it gets me to the issue on a lot of directors is they're just creating noise. A lot of it is not substantial. A lot of it's not connected, because they go, well, we have to keep it high level. But if you've got no concept of ground level, how the hell can you keep it high level if you don't understand what you're talking about? But anyway, but this gets back to my ideas and theories, because the fact is, everyone's complaining about the state of the UK. Everyone's complaining about the DEI and everything else that's creating problems. You know, I'm should I say the illegals? I don't think the illegals are that much of a problem, except they're just living off everybody else, and just everywhere and causing a lot of crime. But beyond that, it's good. But the reality is, we know what's wrong, and this is what I was trying to get back to, is if we know what's wrong, what can we do that's right? I can't fix the illegal issues. I can't fix the DEI programs. I can't change a lot of this stuff. So the question becomes, how do you work around it? A lot of people disappear to Dubai. I don't think that's a be-all and end-all, to be perfectly honest, because it's in the middle of a bloody desert. It's the cost of living there is not cheap. Yeah, it's tax-free, but if you've lived there, you also know that you pay a premium because it's in the deserts. What you need is something that's sustainable, achievable, and gives you a quality of life that you actually want or as close to it. So for me, the business ideas have to be focused on how do we avoid all the pitfalls of modern society, because that's where the ideas will be, that's where the money's going to be. This is why my personal view, when tech firms started dumping people to market, a lot of them, when you looked at the job roles, they were non-entities. These were reactionary. I think it was tied in, I mean, rumors and conspiracy theories that's tied in with BlackRock, which it probably is, because I think BlackRock were pushing DEI. And if you understand how much leverage investment firms can have on your business when they control your investments, in other words, they can replace the CEO, they can make a run on your funds, they can pull loans to bankrupt or destroy your business. They have a lot more control than you think. So if they're doing that at the top level, it ripples through the entire market, because, I mean, I assume that's what happened with Harley. I assume it happened with Disney. But who knows? Somebody may know more than I do. But the reality is, unless you've got 100% ownership of a business, you're not going to be able to avoid that. Because the other thing is, in a bigger business, it's called supply chain. So what they do is they cause this ripple effect. So in the supply chain, they will go to Bob the builder with it's him, his son, and two of his old schoolmates, and go, well, what's your ESG? What's your sustainability policy? What's this? There is no relevance to them about the size of a company. And the fact that the owner is Dave, Dagnum Dave or whatever, and he does bricklaying, and his son's a bricklayer, and his old classmates are labourers. They don't have an accountant. They don't have ESG. They don't have a health and safety manager. They don't have an energy manager. They don't have a sustainability manager. They don't have a net zero policy. They don't have, because they work for a living. And the reality is, this bloatware is what's killing a lot of the stuff in the UK business sector anyway. A lot of them are non-entity roles. Now, I could be quite blasé about it, simply because I'm not talking about is it needed. I'm talking about the fact that they can't afford it. They keep turning the screws down on people that actually produce things, because the top layer is getting bigger and bigger. But if you only had £1 and still only have £1 and need another 10 different job roles added to your business because the government decided to change its policies, the guy that the pound should have been going to is getting 60 pence because you took the other 40 pence to bloat your business out. And then you, on top of that, part of it is it's a top-down effect. So your ESG and everything, you're going, well, I don't actually produce anything. I need to go to the supply chain that produce things and go, what's your ESG policy? What's this? And they don't have one because they ain't got the funding. But also, they don't need it. They're too small. I mean, the most environmental thing you'll get from a bricklayer is probably how do you keep the dust down and do your van share? There ain't much else in it. I know somebody's got to sit there and go, well, we delivered 4 times more bricks on one trip rather than 3 trips. Yeah, I get it. But I'm just saying, when you're asking a guy that's got a tidy business, this corporate stuff, they can't provide it because they don't have the chuff. Like I say, the college courses and that, they're all built with chuff. It's just verbose nonsense a lot of the time. They don't have it because they cut through the core. We do 400 bricks a day, and that's how many bricks that building takes, and that's how long it's going to take us. That's the sort of stuff they're interested in. Not were these bricks taken sustainably. That's not what they're looking for. In fact, the architects, the surveyors and others should actually be defining what those bricks should be in the first place, and that should be their nonsense. But this is the sort of complexities in the industry. So this is where it gets stupid, because what happens is at the top they're told to drive costs down, but in the middle you've got big companies like, say, your big FM companies that will have ESGs, they'll have this and that, the other. They don't have any skilled workers, or very limited these days, because you can't get them. There's a massive engineering shortage. So what do? They sub it out to Dave from Dagenham, the bricklayer, Tim the window fitter, John the plumber, and whoever. And it's all just become fantasy stuff. And you pay a premium. And at the top, the same we need to drive costs down. You can't. You're increasing the costs year on year just by artificial inflation, because you're producing all this paperwork that it's not going anywhere. It's not producing anything. It's all about statistics. I mean, it's got to go back to Blair, hasn't it? Statistic nonsense is like your waiting times and everything with the doctors all become stats. So as long as they didn't answer the phone, you're not a stat. So what they do is they only answer the number of calls that they need, so they can have 100% appointment set that day and all that crap, because they're lying. Anyway, moving away. But the point being is there could be opportunities in that type of stuff on streamlining it, on getting an entity that has qualified, skilled and available engineers. A bidding system. So that instead of it just being, trust a trader type stuff, you have it on a level, which they do have in the Middle East, where you bid on projects. So for example, I'm a little school. I don't really know about building stuff. They gave it to me because it used to be done as a PFI, and now it's run by Jim, our caretaker, that comes up and says to the bursar, "Oh, the back room needs painting, or the hall needs. Let's say the hall needs painting." Makes it a bit more interesting. But I don't know how much that costs. I don't know what I need. But if you can create a framework with a bidding system in it, you could get two sides in the same frame. So you want a surveyor or a project manager, probably just a project manager, and you want somebody who's local, because then you can use the same person and push the price down on a regular basis, because obviously they're coming in for your projects, like say in the summer, and you've got about 20 projects every summer. He knows he's got work with you for 2-3 months every year. So you can negotiate something there. And then the other side is a supply chain of approved contractors with a proven track record. So you don't have to worry about going out to market, trying to find this guy, trying to do that. You want people that specialise in schools, specialise in healthcare, specialise in whatever. Because some of the projects can be quite big. Like a 3G football pitch can be about, with all the fencing, lighting and everything, maybe a French drain thrown in for good measure, £800,000. So the point being is, there may be an opportunity in there. I've just thrown that out there in the middle of my video, so it may be something somebody will take on, or nobody takes it on, and then suddenly I make it something and go, you did mention that ages ago, I wish I'd stole the idea. But we'll see. But I do think there's an opportunity in there for that. Because it could be security, it could be fire, etc. But I want it where you can actually turn around and go, that client's a twat. I'm not working with that twat. Because you should be able to do that. Because I think part of the problem is a lot of the clients out there are twats. And they're making a lot of people not want to work with them. And then obviously they get the ESG and all the other stuff thrown in, which in a platform with a bidding system, I could create an entire framework where she does a lot of it for them. Because what they do is you go, our ESG is in line with whatever this is. And I've got an ESG policy sat there. And it just says this, this, and this. I go, yep, that's our policy. Matt's made it available that anybody can use it. So, yep, that's ours. We can use exactly the same. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. It's already 40 minutes long. But yeah, I mean, Madrid was good. I did enjoy Madrid. Madrid was, my son loved it. It was good. What I liked about Madrid was it's got some amazing roads, but the sat nav gets really confused because it's got roads on top of roads. But it's not like you'll have like a 4-way motorway, but then this one will go up and over and round. But the road you're on is not actually that road. It's thinking on that road because it's got confused. The amount of times I gave up on the sat nav because it got confused so much. But the road structure is really good. The complexity of it makes it, once you know the area, be sound. Madrid itself, I find an interesting place. I've got to spend a bit more time there to sort of be a bit more judgmental and take all of its band-aid off. We didn't get any of the foreigners go home nonsense that people have been talking about in the cities. And I get it, because it's what's exactly happened in London and other cities where the rents have been shot up because they're flooding and full of people that shouldn't be there. But in Spain, it's tourists. In UK, it's illegals. Yeah. And in I think Canada, is where the open border policy ended up with, was it 2 million extra people that have just killed their economy. So it's not a isolated incident. And I do have a confusing question, because now they come out with this Macron's, whatever that person is, his wife, his tutor, groomer, whatever, because it was her teacher, Macron's teacher at 14, when he was 14. Because it does look like a guy with a wig. I've got to admit that. And a lot of people have picked up on the way she sits. And I say she, not being rude. It's just I can't remember the name. And then obviously there was a court case around the person being a man and some birth certificate or something, and that person won the case. Macron's other half lost the case, allegedly. I haven't got all the facts, so I can't. I'm only speculating. But I find it a bit weird that you've got what seems to be a is it a transgender? I don't know. What would you define if that was a guy to a woman? I don't know. A ladyboy? I don't know. But you've got that person in France pulling Macron strings. Starmer, that's had some weird thing with some Ukrainian models that seems to just drop out of the media. You have to look it up probably and find there's something weird going on there. And his mate Ali. You had Trudeau, who was obviously gay in Canada. You had Obama before, where they're on about Michelle being a man or something previously. I don't know, but there does seem to be a bit of an undertone of something going on when either somebody are fascinated about sexuality or there's something strange going on. Because I looked at the Olympics and as soon as I seen the open ceremony, that was me. I just switched off. I just thought this is just vulgar. It's not fixated on sports. It's not fixated even on art. It was just like a scourge of people of bitterness. But the weird thing is, I look back, I've never had an issue with people being whatever they want to be, because most of the time I'm not really interested. You know, in the same way, I've never had a woman in a man dressed as a woman and thought, oh, that's attractive, and then been disheartened to find out it was a man. I've never had that. So I've never had an issue where I could assume I'd be upset by somebody being gay or trans or whatever, because it's never been an issue. I was listening to Boy George yesterday, funny enough. I was watching some stuff on new wave music, and they're on about the clubs in London. And he seems to have a bit of a bitter thing on him. I did say to the missus, he does seem to have a bit of a catty, gay vibe on him, in a nasty way. But that was more to do with his attitude. It doesn't mean all gays are like that. That's the weird thing. People go, oh, so you anti? No. There's a catty thing that some gay men have, and he was doing it. In the same way, when I had the call centre, I think it was 12 or 14 people there were girls, Gurlz, I think the way they spell it. Now, that meant I had people that did gay pageants. I had men that liked other men, men that dressed as women. I had women that were lesbians. I had all sorts in there, and everyone just got along. It was just funny. In fact, some of the stories people come out with are hysterical. It's book writing stuff about the stuff that people get up to. I used to have some funny conversations with them just because my own amusement and curiosity, because I do ask people things just because I like to get other people's perspectives, because I'm not judgmental, you see, so I actually ask them stuff people wouldn't normally ask them. Like who does who and why? I don't understand it. So you get into these conversations with people, like, oh, I like to this and whatever. But it's to soften the conversation, because you're desensitizing everything, in the sense of you're just being friendly and not really, you're not judgmental. It's more the question marks, because you're gonna, because a lot of people on the surface, I just go, you know what, if that's what they want to do, it's fine. I'll pretend, not really interested, but okay, so what's the, and then it sort of becomes a joke, everyone's laughing and everyone's chilled out. They do have some funny conversations though. I might write a book on some of them, because they all have like different names anyway, so it's not as if you would know who any of these people were. So, because in the Philippines, everyone has a second name, they've not about God knows how many, so I won't use April's, because she hates it when I say it for some reason. She says it sounds wrong when you say it for some reason. But her name, a lot of them are double-barreled, so you'll get like silly names like Bong Bong, or some peculiar things where you're thinking, well, but his name's this. It's like some of our friends are called Salt, another one's Pepper, etc., because that's the names the parents gave them. Somebody's trying to ring me, but I'm on my phone at the minute. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you get the names are quite funny in the Philippines sometimes. But everybody calls them that. They all have nicknames, and you're like, well, how does that name become that name? But everybody knows if you're that name, everybody's name's that. It's weird. But I suppose we have that in Scotland as well, because if you're named Huey, then your name's Shug for some reason. Your nickname. That's just one of those things, and I have no idea why. But we are off on a tangent. I know this video is a bit longer than it should be, because I'm now on my second coffee for the day. But yeah, things are moving forward. Madrid was really good. Concert was good. I enjoyed Iggy Pop. I've got to admit, he for the state of his body. I mean, because obviously he's getting on. I think he's 78, and he's still jumping around that stage. But his body looks like it's like a Ford Cortina with 250,000 miles on it. It looks like it's had better days, but his vocals fantastic, really, really good. I enjoyed that. What's that? See, this is the kid. This is how when you have kids. 4-leaf clover up there. I noticed it when I just looked in the video and thought, that's the kids messing around. I'm gonna take that off. So you turn your back, and they find that sort of stuff funny because it irritates me. I've just moved it. Yeah, Iggy Pop was good. There's a band called Fiddler. If you like punk, I do recommend listening to them. They seemed a bit disorientated. I think they were under the influence of whatever the influence was. But they put it inside a big tent. So there's a tent for about 1,200, 1,600 people. And the noise in there was horrendous. I mean, I come out and it's like a grenade's gone off next to you. You're just like, ooh, really, really loud, but really good event. The Fiddler were really good. And then Weezer. Ubby love Weezer because that's one of his favourite bands. That's the main reason we ended up going. They performed really well. The crowd were really good. Some of the people were complaining for some reason about the sound systems. I've got to admit, we were right at the front, probably third or fourth row, and you could feel your body, the sound going through you, because the vibration off the bass was just literally just vibrating straight through you. It was really loud. But really good event, loved it. I mean, it's normally a 3-day, but the third day was Spanish, so I wasn't really interested in that. Second day, I gave my ticket to April so she could go with Ubby instead, because I had Alanis Morissette, Jet, and a few other bands. Not my sort of genres, but I thought, you know what, a bit selfish for me and Ubby just to go. We were going to go to Universal, but getting back from the event, because it's in like a big industrial zone, is such a rigmarole. Because even I thought, second day, drop you off, I'll pick you up. Got in, dropped off, no issues, straight away, bam, dropped off, great. Try and pick him up, roadblock, roadblock, can't get in there. Police blocked off every location and said, oh, you go up here. I'm like, I don't live here. The sat nav doesn't know what you're telling me. I've no idea where you're trying to send me. So I just rang him up and says, I'll just jump in a taxi. This is because the main events are on at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So next thing is, we're ringing so I've gone back to the hotel because me and Zoe had a day out at the malls together. Lucky enough, they had a band on there as well, so she got to sit and listen to some music with some nice fresh lemonade, and do a bit of shopping with us. But it still took them 6 taxis to get a taxi back because the taxis couldn't even get in there either. So one thing I will say about the Mad Cool Festival is trying to get back out is a nightmare. Although we did follow some Spaniards the first night because we found this. There was a couple of Spaniards walking. I thought we'll get the other side of the motorway. It's much easier that side because obviously it's outside that zone, and our hotel's that way. It's about 11 kilometers from the event, but we get the other side. It'll be easier to get a taxi and cheaper. Because when you use the apps, it jumps, like 10, 20 euros difference. So we follow these Spaniards, and they come to an underpass. The motorway's above you, and there's a big fence across it. The sort of danger, don't enter type fences. They went through there. We went through there. Come out the other side, big farmer's field. Walked across the farmer's field for about 10 minutes, and then eventually headed up through a park to a main road. Got taxi, bang. there within 4 minutes and away, and €11 cheaper than it was outside the venue that they couldn't get to. So there's little ways of not beating the system, but it's easier to walk for that 20 minutes than wait 20 minutes and hope that a taxi got there. Because if you can get outside that zone, it's much easier to get picked up. Because the police block off all the entrances. They do say there's specified pick-up and drop-off points. They do say there's some shuttle buses, but there is nothing near the hotel. But I like the hotel we stayed in for its simplicity in parking, because Madrid's a nightmare unless you're parking in there and just abandoning your car. I do recommend either going without a car and then you get a better hotel in the city, or if you're going on the outskirts like we did, it does give you the fact of free parking, shopping mall, the Holiday Inn Express. I'll just say where the hotel is before I forget what it's called. The mall is opposite, and it's within driving distance to Westfield as well. Westfield Shopping Centre is another big mall. Universal's not far, and it's easy access from there. We've got in Spain, you've got to have like the sticker on your window, which I think they're €5, but it categorises your car. So we're category C, I believe it is, which is a green car. But even we can be restricted in some of the city zones because some of them are equivalent of electric only. But we don't really need to go in that far into the city because it's chaotic enough on the outskirts. But anyway, great trip, really loved it. Now I'm back in La Mata, drinking me coffee, chilling out. But anyway, have a great weekend, guys. Hopefully we'll have something of interest to update with soon, because I've been doing a lot of work stuff, like I said, which takes up my time, but I'm starting to get more time back, which means I can start doing other stuff. Anyway, guys, take care.